Welcome back to Our Community. Susie Thomas visiting with Crystal Thomas from Brain Balance. Crystal, I have so many things I want to ask you about this. First of all, are there gender differences? Do we notice more of this in little boys, for instance, than little girls, or no?
Yes, we do. And again, I think the research is still out. I mean, there's a lot of, I should say, hypotheses, or you know what I mean, we have guesses as to why that is, but certainly we are seeing that it is more prevalent in boys. You know, we can look at the brain as a structure and say, well, the corpus callosum, which is that part of the brain that connects the two hemispheres, is actually more narrow in males.
I have read that it shrivels and in utero. And that tends to make males more left brain dominant, where females are, it's more like a superhighway going back and forth, which I will never apologize for being scatterbrained again, because that's just the way my brain is made.
Right.
But
think about that. So if you are coming into the world with already a little bit of a left brain dominance, okay? And let's think of the environment that kids are coming into these days. And again, we are trying to figure out that, what is it? What is the major cause? But almost everything right now is pointing to epigenetics, meaning the environment is playing a role on how our genes express themselves. Okay, so the brain develops as genes turn on, turn off. It's like a well orchestrated orchestra, basically. I mean, think about that. I mean, Dr. Melillo has used the term of an orchestra many times. So you've got all these different groups in the orchestra that are required to play, right? They're all doing something different, but they have to be doing them at the same speed and in the intended way, right? Now, let's say the strings suddenly start playing a little faster and percussion slows down. Same notes, same information, but suddenly that beautiful symphony starts to sound very...
There's discord.
There's discord. That is what happens in the brain. The speed with which different areas of the brain are processing information starts to become disconnected, okay? And so suddenly the information's coming in and the child is not perceiving the world the same way we are. When Dr. Melillo said to me many years ago, Louie's perception of reality is not your perception of reality. Wow. It was like, oh my gosh, it changed the way I parented him. It changed the way I looked at his behaviors. And this is something we really help our parents to understand, because they do come in and they're so frustrated and overwhelmed. But yeah, with the, little boys, I think, going back to that, they're coming into the world with a little bit of a left brain dominance, okay? There are a lot of things. What's happening in utero? There's a lot of research being done with stress hormones and testosterone.
Wow.
Looking at, again, the birthing process, C-sections. All of my children were C-sections. What does that do? The food that, we are eating. And then you have these children that come into the world. When you and I were, forever ago, infants, we laid on the floor, likely on our bellies.
Oh, right.
And we were in a playpen or not. And what were we doing? We were exploring our world, and we were moving our bodies. And all of those early stages of development are so critical to brain development. The brain will grow to about 80% of its adult size within the first 2-3 years.
That's incredible.
It's incredible. So how does the brain grow? Through stimulation from the environment, whether the mother is rocking, bathing, feeding, touch, sound, all of that sensory information is driving brain development. So if an infant is coming into the world and is sat in a bouncy seat staring at a video of Baby Einstein or whatever it is all day long, not moving its body. I remember when, the kids were little, as soon as they could maintain head stability, you put them in an exerciser, right?
Sure.
I mean, we do all these things and we think we're engaging our child, and
but we're overdoing it on one side of the brain.
Absolutely.
And understimulating the other side.
When I realized, I tell parents all the time, especially the pregnant ones that come in, I'm like, a human baby needs a human face to look at.
Yes.
Engage. Those mirror neurons that are firing, that come from the right side of the brain, need that facial expression, the touch, they don't need a black and white, whatever, red, they just, it changed the way I did things with my fourth child, and so.
Well, let me stop you right there, because we don't want you or anyone listening to start that mother guilt complex.
Oh my gosh, no!
Because they have that anyway.
Oh gosh. So the amazing thing is that, the brain is incredibly plastic.
Yes.
And it is incredibly plastic till our late 20s, really. And so it's never, I have parents who come in that with a 12-year-old. Is it too late? Heavens, no. It's never, ever, ever too late. So don't go back. I spent so many years saying, what did I do when I was pregnant with Louis, when he was an infant? What did I do wrong? And there's absolutely no goodness that comes from that, and you can't help your child from that place, right? And so when I look at him now as a 13-year-old, you would not believe how he started.
Wow.
So it is never too late, and absolutely, but what we know now is, and I can tell parents, if you do have a child that's in middle school or elementary school that's struggling with attention, and get them moving and take the screen away.
So let me, good. Less screen time.
Absolutely.
Oh my goodness. Let me try and understand brain balance a little bit. It's exercising the part of the brain that maybe had atrophied for lack of exercise, and you're able to determine that how with a child of what needs to happen to them. How does this work? What's it look like?
So, and that's the exciting thing, is that we have an assessment process. Okay, so when parents call and they say, I'm concerned about my child, we say, bring them in. Let us evaluate what we see. So the children come to the center, and the first part of the assessment is actually what we call a sensory motor assessment. And we really look at all of these different parts of development. So we take the visual system. How well do the child's eyes move in coordination with one another? How well does their brain perceive information that comes in through their eyes? We have incredible software and programming that Dr. Melillo and these incredible scientists have been able to develop. We test their auditory processing. So again, how well does their brain pick up two different words coming in simultaneously? Can the child's brain process that effectively? Because a lot of times they'll only tell us what they hear from one ear, which tells us, again,
wow.
Even though they have perfectly good hearing, right?
Sure.
We're going to look at how well, the child's gross motor development came together. We have kids that are coming into us with really weak cores, really weak muscles. That affects fine motor development. That affects handwriting, written expression. It just becomes this snowball. Another thing we look at, which is really unique to our program, are primitive reflexes. And that's a whole nother topic in and of itself. I could come back and talk all about primitive reflexes. I didn't even know what they were before we went through the program. But we are born with these reflexes that are survival for us at infant, like the rooting reflex, the grasp reflex.
Yes.
But they should be gone at a certain point. We have kids who come in that have, as a 12-year-old, and they're still maintaining or retaining 8 primitive reflexes, which are roadblocks to further stages of development. Mm-hmm. We address those. We need to work those out. So we do this very comprehensive assessment, and then we also do an academic assessment. So we want to see, is the child's oral reading fluency equally as strong as their comprehension, right? Are they reading as well as their understanding, and vice versa? We look at math reasoning, numerical operations, written expressions. So we do a really comprehensive assessment there too. And then we sit down with the parents and we say, this is what we see. Mm-hmm. And what is incredible is we can look at the left and right side of the brain and say, well, the right side of this child's brain is really intact. It's really good. It's at where it should be. But we're seeing gaps in the other side. Mm-hmm. So then we say to the parents, this is what we recommend. We can tell by the severity of the imbalance, for instance, that within 6 months, we will be able to get that side of the brain firing at the same speed. Yeah.
Wow.
And the kids come 3 times a week for an hour. It's super important that they come. There's a whole nutrition part of the program. We are all about clean eating. Mm-hmm. It's just so important because the brain requires, right? The brain needs amino acids. It needs all of this important nutrition. And I can't tell you what American children are eating, for the most part, and it's not benefiting them neurologically. The brain-gut connection is very, 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 very strong. So there's nutrition part, and we really look at the whole child. We help the parents understand this is a great way to address behavioral issues at home. These are things that your child needs to be doing. So we really try to work with the families and help them everywhere.
This is so interesting because I wrote down 3 words here: behavioral, academic, and social issues. They must interrelate then.
They absolutely do. And it's sometimes the parents don't even realize there's a connection between them. Because if your child, for instance, we have kids who come in and the parents say, well, they've been diagnosed with ADHD. Okay. And we'll really look after our assessment, we'll say, well, ADHD is really a right hemispheric problem. But we may assess this child and say, no, this child has a learning disability, like a true learning disability, which means if you're sitting in a classroom and you really don't understand what's being taught to you, as an adult, how long would you sit?
Right.
And not very long before you'd look out the window or you talk to your friend, because these kids are great task avoiders and they're great at deflecting. So a lot of times they're aware of what's difficult for them. They're aware that they're struggling. They may have self-esteem issues, but sometimes these kids become the class clown because they want to find something that makes them popular or they want to relate to kids. They're pretty social kids. And so suddenly you have this child that now everyone is saying, they have ADHD, we need to put them on medication. But really, it's coming down to a learning issue, and we need to fix that. And then suddenly the behavior issues resolve themselves.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. We're talking with Crystal Thomas from Brain Balance. So you would recommend this for a child with dyslexia, for a child with autism,
right.
Someone on the spectrum.
Yep.
You can determine what is it needs to be balanced out.
And children don't have to have a diagnosis.
Wow.
Sometimes parents say, I don't know what's going on. Well, we can help you understand that for sure. And we don't diagnose kids. So that's another thing parents need to know. We are a non-medical, non-drug. There's nothing about that. If the child is on medication, that's not going to affect us either way. I've had parents say, well, my child takes medication, so I don't think they can do brain balance. No, that's not the case at all. That's between the child and their doctor. But a lot of times kids go through the program and they don't need their medication anymore, which is really great. Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. That's good news, too. It's answered prayer for a lot of families.
Yeah, because it is hard.
Where are you located? How do we reach you? Do you have a website?
We
How do we get in touch?
We do. So if you were to go on www.brainbalancecanton.com, you will find us. Our center is located at 4207 Hills and Dales Road. So right in between kind of that Fulton and Whipple, right across from the Dairy Queen from Avondale School there. Our number's 330-617-4550.
Say that again, please.
Sure. 330-617-4550. And you just call and you say, I want to learn more. And if you're not sure you want to bring your child in for an assessment, we will do a tour consult where you can just come in and meet with one of the directors and say, I just feel like I need to learn a little bit more. Come in. We're here for you.
Crystal Thomas, got to have you back. This is fascinating.
Anytime.
Thanks for all you're doing. Thanks for all the kids you're helping and families you're helping.
Oh, my pleasure.
And thanks for joining us on Our Community.
Thanks.